Okay, so the other day, last Friday, I was seeing some examples of more beautiful trades and getting in them and showing them to people, and was looking for more insights into what happens inside of the brain, what's happening in our minds when we see these trades, and also observing different things that people have told me from time to time when they express, here's what I'm thinking, and so forth. And what I noticed is that, for instance, last Friday, I was taking some of these charts and going to around this time frame, around the 8 hour, and just immediately recognizing the shape. And at that time, which was now Tuesday, so it was a few days ago, there was a short. And so I went short and showed people, here's why I'm going short, because I see this pattern that I have recognized thousands of times before. And right now, by the way, there's a long that's happening, and it's another perfect phenomenon that I've seen thousands and thousands of times before, and I recognize it, I know it to be true, and I just see it and I get in and I show it to people so that they can also see it. The same thing happened on the Aussie dollar, but I thought it was a little bit better this time on the Aussie yen because at that moment in time there was some yen strength which enhanced that trade. Now, another thing that was happening at that time is there was a short on several of the pound pairs, and I chose the pound yen as being the one that was the most desirable at that time, also because the yen strength was contributing to the move and it made it look much better. But the important thing is if you just look at it and see it. That's all you have to do. And then at the same time, there was a short at that time on all gold pairs, gold against the dollar and the rest of them. And then I demonstrated how I recognize that mostly from using silver as the reference, as I often do, because on this one I can see an ABC shape. And it's not an ABC shape on gold, but it's really effectively almost the same thing, except on this one, it's a ending diagonal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's a turning point right there. That's where we got out. And the thing is that you could just look at it and see it if your eyes have been trained to identify and recognize certain market patterns. And so that's what I've been showing for a long time. And then what I notice is that even with myself, sometimes I can look at it and I can see it, and then I have additional thoughts. Now, what causes these additional thoughts? Before we get into the additional thoughts part, I just want to mention also there are several reasons why a person might not be able to look at the chart and see an entry and get in. And one of the things that happens is that you might not believe it. So, what I do every day is I show these things over and over and over, hoping that after years of seeing it over and over and over, every person will go, okay, yes, that's true. What that's doing there, I recognize it. That's true. But an interesting thing happens is that the unconscious mind deletes, distorts, and filters information that goes into the brain based on our past experiences, our values, our core beliefs. For instance, like if a person has some belief that, well, the world is a bad place and I'm bad and making money is bad, and then what they see on the chart, they just delete it. I can show it day after day after day, and they go, no, I never saw that. This stuff doesn't work. I don't see that because it just gets deleted. And this is extremely important when you realize that your unconscious mind is always deleting, distorting, filtering the information that's going into it so that you can't trust even what you believe. You believe things that are not true. You see things that you think are true and they're not. And when you realize that, it makes you more aware of what's going on in the mind. Then you can begin to notice what might be causing these things to happen. And that's what we go into in all of our training, especially in all of the reprogramming the mind for success and trading course. Now, back to what we were talking about right before this. So, a person can see an entry and then have additional thoughts. Some of the thoughts that come up would be, well, what about this? Yeah, but what if this happens? And what about this other thing? Instead of just seeing the entry, think, oh, there's an entry, and getting in. Now, what causes that to happen is very interesting. What causes that to happen is a disruption in the energy flow of the nervous system and the brain. And that's caused by anxiety, fear, and other emotions like anger, stress in general, sadness, all these emotions can cause a disruption in the energy flow of the nervous system and the brain, and that causes a person to have these other thoughts. Where one person could just look and say, "Hey, there's an entry. I'm getting in," and another person could go, "Yeah, that looks like an entry. Well, what about this? And what about this?" And then not be able to get in because the brain is creating additional thoughts that don't serve any purpose. And I believe that that is mostly caused by focusing on anxiety. For instance, if you watch mainstream news, you will be given a big dose of anxiety, and then it starts to go into your nervous system, and then it starts to affect how you feel, and then it's affecting in your stomach, in your nervous system, your brain. And people think, consciously, no, I'm okay. I'm not having any anxiety or stress or anything. But at an unconscious level, it's there, and it can be measured. And the brain waves and activity, all this stuff can and has been measured. And that's how neuroscientists know that this stuff is true. And that's how you can know this stuff is true, not by measuring things and sticking wires on your head, but by practicing these things and observing the effects of it. For instance, how do you get rid of those disruptions in your nervous system is by doing what is called meridian tapping, also known as EFT tapping and TFT tapping, tapping on the meridian points that control the flow of energy for emotions. And this can actually slow down and erase these disruptions, because when you have anxiety, it's disrupting the flow of energy. And when you can get that under control, then you can, oh, well, now I can think again. And oh, now I can look at a chart and say, oh, there's an entry. I can get in. Before I might go, oh, there's an entry. What about this? What about this? What about this? That's the disruption in the flow of energy that's blocking the brain from functioning properly. So that's why I have emphasized this in our course, Reprogramming the Mind for Success in Trading. And we already have a section on how to do that. And now we're going to have some additional sections on more specific ways of applying EFT to stop the disruption of the flow of energy in the body while you're trying to trade. Stop the disruption in the flow of energy to your brain, because it's mainly the front part of the brain where the flow is cut off, and then you're trying to think, and you can't think because the brain isn't functioning. And when you're in the person that you are and you're experiencing this, you don't know that that's really what's happening. Okay, so one more part of this is that in addition to the EFT tapping, which I would recommend that everyone does just before you trade or even during the time that you're trading. And recently I mentioned, oh, I'm doing this all the time. And someone said, oh, I'm not going to do all that tapping like you're doing. And the alternative to doing that would be to just keep the anxiety, the fear, and keep getting the results that aren't good because you're not able to think, you're not able to make good decisions. If you don't want to do the tapping, well, that's great. The other option would be you keep on losing. But if you do want to start winning, you may want to start tapping. And the other part of that is deep breathing. There's specific ways of deep breathing. And, I could just say deep breathing in general, but there's specific ways to do deep breathing. And one in particular will put your state into an extremely calm and relaxed state of mind within just a matter of minutes. So if you're doing tapping and deep breathing, Keep in mind, all this stuff there's a section in the course on how to do that. We can work on it together in our live sessions. And now that we're doing live sessions on reprogramming the mind for success in trading, just keep in mind you can join in and have a session on how to do breathing. But these are so important. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's not that doesn't have anything to do with it." I could say it's because they're idiots, but it's just because they're not aware. And so, how would you become aware? Is instead of labeling and dismissing something, saying, "Well, that's just one of those things," and just dismissing it, you actually look into it and say, "Well, maybe there's something to that. Maybe I could actually learn something. Let's try it and see. Let's test it and see." Test it and see. And I guarantee you, if you do this breathing exercise, you will be in a different state in 5 minutes. And you can see, oh, I can think completely differently than I was thinking before. Like right now, it looks like I'm stressed out because I'm making a video. Now, if I were to stop and do this deep breathing for 5 minutes, I would be in a completely different state of mind. I would be able to make wise, winning trading decisions just by breathing deep and tapping. So, until the next time, have a wonderful time when you're trading, and I'll talk to you later. Now, I have made another video on the subject, and you can watch that video right over here.